What's your take on this? So many different angles here.
Well, I think it's a blockbuster deal potentially for Microsoft. You know, Microsoft made a nice pivot several years ago into the cloud with Microsoft Azure because before that, as you may recall, the stock had been dormant for about 10 or 15 years because it was perceived to be an old school PC company. And so they've had success with Microsoft Azure, but this would bring them into social media for the first time and all those social media related digital ad revenues. This could be a real Kickstarter for Microsoft. I'd like the deal very much. Of course, it depends on what kind of deal is struck as far as the compensation to the owner.
And you own a good chunk of Microsoft. That said, it doesn't really fit into Satya Nadella's enterprise-led strategy. I mean, this would be a completely different kind of deal than Microsoft has ever done before. Does that give you any concerns, especially as big tech companies are under a lot of scrutiny for antitrust issues? Microsoft not on the latest list, but has certainly fought antitrust issues in the past.
Yeah, you raise a very good point. They've obviously been a really successful company, but one thing that they've been bad at is the consumer side of the house. And this, of course, would be a consumer-oriented deal. But I think under the leadership of Satya Nadella, who has just been a whirlwind there since he came in as CEO in 2014, that they will do this right. Again, it depends on how much they pay, but this is probably the most exciting, not just social media product, but tech product that's come down the pipe in a long time. And so if they have a chance to grab it, I think they should grab it.
Meantime, this statement coming into us today from TikTok. TikTok is loved by 100 million Americans. It'll be here for many years to come. Microsoft also saying in a blog post confirming that it's had these talks, confirming that Nadella is speaking with President Trump, and that it's committed to acquiring TikTok subject to a complete security review. You know, Paul, I lived in China in 2008 when the Chinese government blocked Facebook and Twitter. And at the time, we didn't know how long it would last, but now it's going on 12 years. I didn't think such a thing could ever happen in the United States. What do you make of the president trying to use his power to ban a company that 100 million Americans are using?
Well, first of all, not to tilt my hand political, but I think it's absurd. And then to follow up today with a conversation that if Microsoft indeed buys TikTok, that the government should have some kind of founder's fee paid. Unbelievable. However, I think that if given the concerns about TikTok, which I would never have the same kind of concerns about this particular company as I would maybe something like Huawei, which has been the punching bag in the past. This is a good opportunity for Microsoft, and hopefully they can get through the obstacles put up by the U.S. government and anybody else to get the deal done. But yes, absurd, some of the comments that were made today by the president.
Even Microsoft saying in their blog posts that they are committed to providing proper economic benefits to the United States. So a nod to what the president has asked for. Of course, we're going to continue to watch how this plays out. We are also, Paul, watching this big rally in tech stocks, not just Microsoft shares, but also Apple hitting a record high. You in the past has said Apple was overvalued in the past. What do you think today?
I still think it's overvalued. I have it in the portfolio, and it's a fairly large position, but it's even a bigger position in my benchmark. So you'd have to say I'm absolutely in, but relatively a little bit light. Here's what I worry about with Apple. So until further notice, you still have at least 40% of their revenues with the iPhone. And yes, you will have a pop with 5G. And I was happy to see when they reported their earnings last week that the delay in 5G is going from September only until about the October timeframe. I actually thought it was going to be worse. But that still is a great dependency on the iPhone. And over time, smartphones mature, and Huawei and Samsung are grabbing share in important geographic marketplaces like Asia. And then the other thing that really helped Apple pop as far as its stock price since its last quarterly report was some remote work, students at home buying iPads and Macs. Now, if and when we solve the COVID riddle, that business will go back to where it came from as recently as a year ago, which is a mature, very slow growth business. So if you are pining your hopes on the iPhone and the Mac and the iPad, that is a big percentage of revenues, which there's no way around thinking about it. It is maturing, and in the future, the growth there has to slow dramatically. So that, with the current stock price, has me a bit worried.
Meantime, you've got Google, Amazon in your portfolio, but not Facebook. Why not?
I actually have some Facebook. I am worried about the regulators. Now, one of the things that we've spoken about so far is if Microsoft does the TikTok deal, Zuckerberg and Facebook can go back to congressional testimony and say, hey, look, we don't dominate the whole space. We have Microsoft, a well-heeled competitor, taking on a really big social media property. And so they might become a more interesting story indirectly with the hookup between Microsoft and TikTok, because they can probably stave off those regulators that are worried about Facebook becoming too powerful. They probably can't say that if this deal goes through.
You've also got Nvidia and ARM, obviously a lot of interesting activity happening in the chip space. What are some dark horses we should be watching, or names we should be staying away from?
Yeah, I would be very careful about just blindly adding to tech stocks. I don't do that. I actually think my two best ideas, not in the near term, but over the next couple of years, because they haven't received so much love as the marquee names, is Micron MU and ASM Lithography, ASML. I think those companies can have big moves, whereas unfortunately, I think some of the big moves might have already been made in some of the better known names.